Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Tonight, President Obama is bailing out the mortgage companies and a lot of people and their mortgages. He might want to take a lesson from all of the forest fires. I'll explain in a second. Also, how can we protect the border if ordinary citizens can't even protect their own property? And how the PC mentality helps prove exactly what's wrong with America. If you believe this country is great, but we're being overrun by weasels in Washington, oh, I'll set the traps. Come on, follow me. Hello, America. Here is tonight's hot list. These are the stories that the mainstream media is covering. North Korea makes plans to test a new missile within the next 2 to 3 weeks that could reach as far as the continental U.S. Oh, goody, more to worry about. The U.S. Appeals Court reversed a ruling that would have transferred 17 dirtbags from Gitmo to the United States. Shucks. And the Pope tells Nancy Pelosi, a Catholic who supports abortion rights, that Catholics can't back abortion. What is she going to do now? President Obama says he's going to fix the mortgage industry. He said that earlier today. But everything that the government said it would fix so far hasn't really worked out real well, has it? It's because I believe they don't realize that companies need to fail for capitalism to work. Tonight, here's the one thing. I think we need to handle this financial crisis like it's a forest fire. The government is acting just like those stupid environmentalists who just say, oh, we can't have the forest burned down. Fires are natural, and they're actually good for the soil. If you haven't cleared the underbrush before one starts, well, you might as well just step back, dig a trench, and just save what you can and let it go. Well, we haven't cleared the financial underbrush in our system since Alan Greenspan started running the Fed, and that has put our entire forest into jeopardy. Here are just a few of the out-of-control fires our government is trying to fight right now. First, you got the banks. The government dedicated $700 billion just in the original TARP, which so far has gone to 400 banks in 47 states. Last week, Treasury Secretary Tim TurboTax Geithner suggested another $1.5 trillion just might be needed. And just today, he announced that the government would also commit to absorbing future losses at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to the tune of another $200 billion. Trust me, they're already talking about a new stimulus package. We ain't close to being done. The next fire is the failing auto industry. GM and Chrysler have already gotten $17.4 billion worth of your cash for bailouts. This week they said and they just need another $21 billion to survive. I know. It's 5 o'clock. You're like, come on, Beck, man, I've had a long day. I need a drink, man. That's all right. Have a drink. Have one for me, too, will you? I'll do the math for you. That's $39 billion just to delay the death of an industry ruled by mismanagement, iron-fisted unions, and government regulations. And the last fire, failing states with gigantic budgets. The spending bill that President Obama signed last week throws money at almost every state in the nation in an attempt to bail them out of years of greed, special interest, pandering, and misplaced priorities. So where does this all end? Well, right now it seems we have our fire hoses hooked directly up to the printing presses at the Treasury, but the more money we pump out, the worse the fire rages. So what should we do? Well, the one thing that we can do is get people out of the way. Dig a trench, gang, because it's on fire and it's going to burn out of control. What's already on fire has to burn to the ground in a controlled manner, letting the greedy, letting the corrupt, and the downright stupid fail. It will replenish the soil of capitalism and give us the chance to rebuild the right way. But it seems to me we're headed down the road to socialism. Oh, jeez. Hey, Dewey. This is always so spooky. Socialism. Don't fear socialism. It is me behind the mountain. Blah, blah, blah. All right. You know, I actually have respect for our next guest because he's one of the few in America that just doesn't mince words. He is a socialist. And I respect that much more than other people pretending that they're not. Frank Llewellyn, director of the Democratic Socialists of America. How are you, sir?
All right. Good to meet you, Glenn.
I feel you like me already.
Well, I like you as an individual.
Would you like an M&M?
No, thank you.
I'll share them.
I'm already too large.
No. Look at me. I'll share them, and you know why? Because I choose to share them. not because somebody tells me to share them.
Well, that's right. You're right as long as you have the ownership of those.
But is that the deal with socialism? I don't have ownership of my M&Ms or my land or my business?
Well, socialists generally believe that democracy needs to be extended into more spheres of society, and especially the economy. And so, we look to build institutions that will do that, cooperative institutions, unions. We look to restructure power relationships so that we don't have the same mismanagers with the same misplaced priorities, destroying the economy as they've recently done.
Right. Do you think the Fed and the government have done a good job?
No.
No, you don't. See, we're building bridges here.
Yeah, no.
Capitalists, socialists, building bridges. They stink on ice. Now, I've read, this is a copy of your magazine.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And I just noticed here that there's some good reading in here, but there's also, here's the United Steelworkers Union, an ad there, full-page ad. This is the Nurses Union ad, and this is the Administrative Employees ad, another union. The unions like socialism? I mean,
some people in the union movement are, like socialism. Some people don't.
Well, I mean, they're spending money. I print a magazine. I don't have any union money coming into my magazine.
I'm sure that you have other people that support your magazines. We're
you.
very happy that we have labor support, and we would like to have more labor support than we do. But we'll take an ad from you too.
Right. No, I don't think I would. I mean, unless somebody will force me to buy an ad.
That's one way to think about how to democratize the support for publications is if you have ads drawn by lotteries and they go to different kind of publications. That would be, there's been some talk of that in some places.
Wait.
But that's not the United States.
So wait. So in other words, it'd be my turn to advertise in your magazine?
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. So what do you think of the bailout bill? Not enough, I'm guessing.
The bill that was signed,
yeah,
we think that's a down payment. It's not large enough, in our judgment, to have as much of an impact as it should. I mean, we have a huge economy. The package represents only a couple of percentage points of the economy. It's stretched over a year and a half in terms of its spending. So, in my judgment, a package of more like $1 trillion a year would
every year.
Is not necessary to get
the money. Because I know you don't believe in profits.
Well, that's what taxation is for. If you grow the economy and have a fair system of taxation, then you'll be able to repay the money. One thing that was shown in the Clinton administration is they were able to pay down a huge portion of the national debt. We were on the road to actually having that whole debt paid down until the Bush administration spent all the money.
You know what part of that?
And they didn't even have a fair tax.
I know. You know what's really amazing about that? They also slashed the bat snot out of welfare. Isn't that weird?
They did change the support systems for people. Yes, they did.
So we might have also been spending a lot less. We would have been less socialist during the Clinton administration than we are today under Obama.
I wouldn't describe the Clinton administration as
less socialist? As less socialist than what we are now?
Yeah.
Come on, we're socialist light. Look, Frank,
America is blessed with having the two most capitalist political parties in the world. The idea...
You got to be kidding me.
Oh,
boy, we see the world as good. They're both socialists. Listen, here's the thing. I will share them. They are mine. I purchased them, and I'll share them willingly.
That's okay.
All right.
You can have one, though.
Here's the thing. The only debate that I think we need to have in America is this road to socialism. Will you agree we're on the road to socialism?
Actually, I would hope that were the case, but if you talk about what's being proposed generally, no, they're not socialist programs.
Really?
They're programs that are stimulative. They're Keynesian economic programs, but they're not socialist. They don't change power relationships.
Thing that didn't. The union card check they're trying to push through.
Those are not union card. the Employee Free Choice Act will strengthen unions in the United States. That's a good thing. That's a good thing because it will improve the size of the middle class, and that's something that we support. But it is not inherently socialist.
Two things.
It's used in other countries. You know,
that doesn't socialist countries. Okay, listen. Well, here's the thing. Right. Okay. Here's the thing.
Do you think Canada is a socialist country?
Yeah, their policies are socialist.
Well.
Universal health care. Socialized medicine. It's got socialized in it. I mean,
well, most countries in the world have that, and they have been administered by parties of the left and parties of the right.
I'm going to do a.
And we're very much for that, and we hope we can have that here.
Okay, here's the thing, Frank. All I want, and this is the reason why I brought Frank on today, is all I want is if we're going to be a socialist nation, we should have this debate. We shouldn't be hiding behind the Democrats or the Republicans or anything else. If we want to be a socialist nation, has anybody asked you? The Newsweek magazine prints the big title, we're all socialists now. Well, nobody's asked me. I don't want to be a socialist. If America decides to be socialist, then the Americans should decide to be socialist. But that's not what we're doing. We're not having a conversation. I haven't seen actual socialists on television talking about how great socialism is.
No, and most of the people who are writing about socialism don't know anything about it either. You know, the discussion that emerged in the campaign was, you know, very surreal. It wasn't based on facts. It was more like name calling. I mean, if you want to be honest, and you want to take who of the 4 people running for national office was actually the most socialistic, it was Sarah Palin, because she administered a state that says that the oil revenues are collectively owned, and she used her position as governor to force the oil companies to pay the state more money, which they then redistributed to the people. Now, I have a feeling that that's what Chavez does in Venezuela that people like you criticize him for. You know, so, you know, that would at least be a more serious discussion than what the kind of discussion that's appeared in magazines and whatever.
Okay,
if people want to learn about socialism, they should go to our website, which is www.dsausa.org.
There you go. And more and more students, more and more college students, more and more people that are young are signing right up to be a Marxist and a socialist. Everyone should be aware of what that means. Thank you very much, Frank.
Not all Marxists are socialists. Not all, most socialists are not Marxists.
That's fantastic, and I'll have the red tie. President Obama signed the spending bill in Colorado yesterday, but here's the interesting thing. Solar Power Company, the Solar Power Company in the backdrop. Fox Business Channel, Tracy Burns is here. She has more. Hi.
How are you, Glenn?
Well, I'm pretty good, Tracy.
You're all socialist up, fired up over there.
Well, you know, I got up this morning and I read about this solar panel because somebody in my office said, you know, why did he pick this solar panel company? And so we started doing some research.
Right, and it's really interesting, right? Okay, so when President Barack Obama signed the $787 billion economic stimulus package into law in Colorado on Tuesday, he chose to have the CEO of Namaste Solar Electric introduce him. Now, Namaste is a greeting of respect in Sanskrit. Now, the company Namaste will most likely benefit from all the president's energy incentives that are stuffed into this plan. This 2-year-old company needs all the money it can get. It can barely keep its 55 workers on board. But it's not just the company's financial distress that's got people thinking. It's these collective in-house rules of this solar company that are making people wonder why the president decided to associate himself with it. So to start, all Namaste employees, no matter what their job description, are on the same pay scale. And a portion of everyone's salary goes to charity. All major decisions are made by a consensus of all the company employees, all 55. And everyone gets 6 weeks vacation a year. It's no wonder the company's struggling and needs financial assistance. But for many of us taxpayers, it seems odd, or maybe it is coincidental, that the President of the United States would choose a company with this type of progressive, maybe even socialist, internal structure, Glenn.
Maybe I don't want to say it's socialist because there's a big difference, apparently. Okay, thank you very much, Tracy.
You're welcome.
All right. Today, we pretty much nationalized our mortgage system. If you're in the right political persuasion, you're in the right group, nationalizing our banking system or doing nothing is our next question. Right now, it seems to be the best of the two options. That's at least what everybody says, nationalizing our banks. Mark Skousen, he's the author of Investing in One Lesson. He joins me now. Okay, Mark, I can't, I mean, I can't believe what this country is becoming. And I just had somebody, a socialist on set who said, we're not a socialist country. Don't give me that hogwash.
Well,
but
it reminds me of Ludwig von Mises' essay.
Middle
of the road policies lead to socialism. I mean, Frank is right. We don't actually have real ownership of the banks yet. But they are moving in that direction.
Everybody is saying that that's what the best possible thing is. And I mean, look, maybe I'm the only one, Mark, but I really, truly believe that this country was founded on divine principles. I really, truly believe that we change. You can give me all the stuff Canada has done in the last 200 years compared to what free men have created in this country. We have changed the world.
Canada does have a better banking system than we have.
Well, just about everybody has a better, because you know what? Because we didn't, not because of capitalism, but because we have forced in envy and greed. That's why. And it's just been unbridled.
Well, but I'm not sure if you can really put all of that on business. I am looking in particular at what government has done in terms of greed.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying people. I'm saying everybody. People bought too much house. They want, it's the principle of socialism. They got it. I want it. The bankers, the Wall Streeters, they were doing the same thing. It's all about greed and envy and greed with the government. Everybody was involved.
I think there are some fundamental mistakes. One of the big mistakes was when Bernanke and Paulson got together in September and said, let's invite Congress to solve this problem. Because the Federal Reserve actually has all the power to buy all these assets and so on. They didn't need to introduce Congress into this problem. So it's gotten worse as a result of the Fed saying, we can't handle this ourselves. We've got to have Congress involved. We've got to have the Treasury Department. I mean, when was the last time the Treasury Secretary was a famous person? Now he's just as powerful as the Fed. So it's greater authority being given to government, and it's a very dangerous road that we're going on.
So here's the problem as I see it. Again, if this is the course Americans want to take, then we should have that debate. But we're not having that debate. We're not talking about it. Everything is coming at us, and they're saying, you've got to make a decision right now. We've got to vote for this. You can't even read the damn thing in fast enough.
Well, they never read the bills anyway. So,
no,
I mean,
but we are fundamentally changing our nation.
That's true. And I agree with you, Glenn, that this is a major mistake to push through legislation very quickly. We have no long-term plan. Look, every year now we're going to have a new tax bill. We're going to have a new spending bill, a new bailout bill. It keeps coming and coming and coming. But what I would like to see is a market solution. For example, mark-to-market accounting. Now, maybe your readers don't understand this, but basically, if we eliminated the mark-to-market problem, you would see liquidity come back into the system. I mean, I'm not normally a conspiracy theorist, but I'm kind of wondering, this is such a simple solution. Why don't we see that happen?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that when you look at America, we're going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow. When you look at what's happening in California, they're burning down to the ground, and then you look at Alaska, where they did take the money from the oil profits. They gave some of it back to the people. It didn't belong to the state, so they give some of it back to the people, and what do? They save the rest of it. They're fine. Now, why do the people in Alaska, or the people who didn't live in California, why do you have to bail out the crazy people in California? It's craziness. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's program and the things that you can do. Mark, thank you very much. We'll talk again soon.
My pleasure.
When these questions and these problems arise, nobody knows how to fix them. And it's because we're talking about the problem and not the principles to solve them. We go back to the 9 principles of our You're Not Alone project. Question here, should we grow health care and welfare? Well, the answer is in principle number 6. I have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not a guarantee of equal results. And number 7, I work hard for what I have, and the government can't force me to be charitable. If these principles make sense to you, you're not alone. Email your pictures to wesurroundthem@foxnews.com, and don't miss our special coming Friday, March 13th on We Surround Them. Now, the American auto industry is going right down the crapper. Who's to blame? Oh, it's a long list. That's next. If you give me 3 weeks, I might make your head explode, I'm just saying. This brings me to the edge of insanity tonight. People are blaming the auto industry for their problems, and you know what? They caused a lot of their problems. But I also think the unions are also to blame. Mark McKinnon from the Workforce Fairness Institute is with us. Mark, I just had the socialist on. And, I appreciated him. At least he was telling the truth. I mean, at least he standing up saying, I am a socialist. I believe in socialism.
He was telling it straight.
But I noticed all of the union ads in the Socialist magazine. The idea of unions is socialism in a nutshell.
Sure it is.
The good workers have to carry the workers that suck and should be fired.
And it's about transferring wealth. And we should just take these and we're going to give them to the UAW because they need a little extra.
That's right.
Right? Okay.
That's right.
And, we live in a global competitive situation right now. And all these bills that we're talking about that relate to labor, the bailout bill, the card check bill, these are stimulus bills for labor. Labor is just an antiquated notion anymore in a global economy. It's all about competition. And all that labor does is it drives up the cost. Why do we have American car makers that are going out of business and foreign car makers in America that are doing well?
Right.
It costs $1,600 more per car on average to buy an American car. So in this economy or any economy, why would anybody buy an American car?
Brain Room downstairs, which is our fact checker, I saw something come across my desk the other day, that the average UAW worker makes I think it was, Grash, what was it, $154 or $152 an hour when you look at, what? $154 an hour if you look at, if you add in all of the benefits. $154 an hour? How could you possibly be competitive?
Yeah, and it's $1,600 more per car just for the health care costs for the employees.
And you can't, it's my understanding, the UAW, you cannot lay off any people.
Right. And meanwhile, they're spending, they're losing $23 million on a golf course and a re-education center up there in Michigan.
Okay, explain that. The unions do have their own golf course.
They have their own golf course.
They have isn't it 1.2 or 1.6 billion dollars in assets?
Yeah, enormous assets. And this whole card check thing, they're trying to, they want 20 million new members, and that's just, this bill is nothing other than a naked attempt to reverse labor's fortunes. They've gone from 35% of the workforce to 7%. They want to add 20 million new people at about $600 per employee so that they can build more golf courses and fatten the paychecks for the labor boss.
So, Mark, here's the thing that I'm being told we have to wrap up, so real quick. Here's the thing that I don't understand. How does anybody sleep at night thinking that, oh, yeah, I'll have my job when the company is going broke?
Right.
And you will not allow the company to fire anybody or to cut expenses. It doesn't work. It eventually, unless you force people to buy that car or get the government to subsidize that car, your job is over completely.
It's just it's a suicide knot that's wrapped as tight as can be because, they're going to drive up the cost. They're going to go out of business in an economy like this. You've got to be competitive, and they're not. And all they're doing is driving up costs, and they're laying on these bills and asking for taxpayer money to bail them out. And that's
Thank you very much. I have to tell you, let me just real quick tell you, American cars used to suck. They don't anymore. And there's nothing wrong with American workers. We make good cars. We're hardworking people. We just have to use common sense, especially at times like these. All right, another story that's going to make blood shoot right out of your eyes. I'm going to tell you how a homeowner got into big trouble just for trying to keep illegal immigrants off of his own land. You will not believe this court case and how it's just ended. Next. Is going to shoot right out of your eyes when you hear their next story. Guy tries to stop illegal aliens from invading his own property, ends up getting sued by the illegal immigrants. I'm going to talk to you here in a second, but first I want to go to Patty Ann Brown. Patty Ann, Michael Jackson is, let me show it to the camera here. Michael Jackson is actually, this camera, he's auctioning off his paintings and his glove and stuff. I'm going to buy the big Neverland gates for my house.
Awesome.
You want the picture of him? It's good.
I like the glove.
It's only $4,000 to $6,000. No, the glove somebody else is going to buy, I think. You can get the painting of him. All right, what's happening in the news?
Well, right now, the top American general in Afghanistan says that he is happy that President Obama decided to send more combat troops there. Mr. Obama approved sending 17,000 more troops to Afghanistan to help take on the Taliban. More fallout after that chimpanzee attack in Connecticut. That state's Environmental Protection Commissioner is calling for a state law to keep regular people from owning large primates. primates. Police killed the 200-pound chimpanzee Travis after he critically injured his owner's friend. And Illinois Senator Roland Burris today insisted he has done nothing wrong. There have been growing calls for him to step down over possibly misleading statements under oath. He admits he left out some key details regarding the seat his predecessor, Rod Blagojevich, is accused of trying to sell. But he says that's because nobody asked him. And those are your headlines. I'm Patty Ann Brown. Glenn Beck returns in a moment, but first, Brett Baer is live in Washington with a preview of what he has for you on Special Report tonight. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Patty Ann. Coming up, we'll look at the president's homeowner bailout plan. Does the stimulus mean the end of welfare reform? And a solution to all of California's financial problems is being ignored, at least according to some lawmakers. Join me at 6 Eastern for a Special Report. Now back to Glenn Beck.
Doesn't Brett, you look,
yes.
Honestly, you look like somebody that should be on Leave It to Beaver. You look like you're like 18 years old and you're like, I don't mean that as a slur. I guess it sounded bad.
It's really wonderful. That's a wonderful tease. Thank you very much.
I'm making friends and influencing people. You just look like a clean-cut, all-American, I'm in there pitching for you kind of guy. Thanks, Brett.
Well, that's it.
All right. He's going to hate me. I'll never going to talk to me again. All right. Imagine being the owner of property near the U.S.-Mexico border and having thousands of illegals trespass. That's going to keep me up all night. It really is. Trespassing on your land. Next guest is here to tell us how he went from protecting his property to a court battle where he lost. In Tucson, Arizona, Roger Barnett and his attorney, Dave Hardy. Roger, how are you, sir?
Oh, fine, thank you, sir.
Okay, so Roger, tell the story here on, you have kicked off, if I'm not mistaken, 14,000 illegal aliens off of your property. Do you have one of those clickers?
Right. No, I just estimating, and then after a while, we started keeping track of it on a calendar, and going from calendar to calendar, year to year, we'd add them up, and then it come up to 14,000.
This is on your this picture is on your property here. These are the people sitting there.
They crossed my property, went to the one across the street. I think if that's the one you're talking about.
Okay.
There's myself, my wife, and a couple of Border Patrol agents. Yes, I think there was close to over 60 in that group.
Okay, now, if I'm not mistaken, this happened on a weekend. You've rounded up about 14,000 people just in your spare time on weekends.
That's right. Go out to the ranch from my other home in Sierra Vista, my office there. Get to the ranch in the afternoon, Friday afternoon, stay until Sunday afternoon, okay. And that's just on weekends only.
All right, so now you kicked these people off your land. You called police. You told them to stay there. You had a gun on them. This happened when it was March 7th, 2004. They turned around and sued you and said that you were abusive, that you kicked them, et cetera, et cetera. Did you kick them?
That's what they said. I tapped a gal's foot to get her attention. She was unresponsive with two other women. And so I wanted to get their attention, move them to the group, to the bigger group for my protection. As far as holding the gun on them, Glenn, whenever my dog alerted, they were in some brush and they were in an indentation in the ground, and okay. I couldn't see them. They were hiding from me.
Okay.
And so I pulled my gun out, went around the group, made sure they didn't have any weapons, no rocks. They weren't a threat to me, I figured, and that's when I holstered my gun. No more than a minute.
Okay, and you called police or the Border Patrol, and they came and picked them up?
That's right, yes,
all right.
Definitely.
Now, Dave, how in God's green earth did a guy who is, do we not have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Do we not have a right to protect ourselves and our property anymore? How did he end up paying, what is it, almost $70,000 to these illegal aliens?
The jury came back on a couple of verdicts, and that's the jury.
How?
Well, I ought to mention they started in with 16 plaintiffs, 12 of them lost. They started in suing 3 people, 2 of them won. They lost all claims for attorney's fees, and they were going to try to stack those up on Roger. They brought in 9 attorneys, did a little case in Tucson, Arizona. They brought in 3 high-priced attorneys from New York. They're going to run up the lawyer bills to $500,000, maybe $1 million. Stick Roger with that. Well, it didn't come through because they lost on the federal claims, and those were the only claims that carry attorney's fees. we may now be in a position to claim from them.
Okay, so Dave, this is going to make Roger's life a living hell now. If you can collect any money from an American citizen just by coming over across the border onto their land and saying, oh, he abused me, this is a new way to make money now, isn't it?
Well, it's not the first time they've cooked up stories about Roger. They're quite famous for it. I mean, yeah, come on in, claim that if a guy who behaved reasonably went totally out of control. It's only you and him out there in the wilderness. There's no other witnesses. See if someone believes you.
Well, Roger, you you look pretty menacing there.
Oh, I am 66 years old, yes.
I know. Hey, whoa, don't slow down there, Chief. I was just saying. See, you went all crazy.
Yeah,
I got to get an attorney.
Hey, Glenn, these people, at the time, that was 4 years ago, so I was 62 years old. All of them guys, they were anywhere from 20 years old to 30 years old. You know, I had to protect myself.
Okay.
I need to protect myself and my family.
I don't know what country I'm living in anymore. You have a right to protect yourself. They're on your property. Roger, Dave, thanks.
I begin the winter, too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead, real quick.
Oh, I'll tell you, when I went out to Roger's ranch to scope out the scene, I brought my .45.
Yeah. All right. See, they're crazy. Thanks very much. I appreciate it, guys. Now, got to turn to Texas, to a sheriff who I once called a legend because he confronted the Mexican military in a standoff, him and his deputies. I love this story. He was now fighting for government money to help secure the border in his county, but he's been given a hard time. Hello, Sheriff. How are you?
Hey, Glenn. How are you?
Very good. By the way, America, Sheriff Arvin West, America. Tell me what you're doing. You're down in Austin, Texas, trying to get money from the government. For what reason?
Well, for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get them to put a truck waste station right there next to a Border Patrol, U.S. Border Patrol station. And the reason we're pushing this issue, or I've been pushing this issue, is because we're missing ungodly amounts of narcotics loads that's coming through these checkpoints in these semi-trucks, not to mention the human trafficking that's coming through there. But it's fell on...
Go ahead.
It's fell on deaf ears, and I'm to the point now where I've got a local rancher that has said he'll step up and he'll pay for it if he can do it.
I hear that's to the tune of $1 million. A private citizen will say, I'll do it for $1 million.
Around $1 million, maybe a little more.
And you can't get the government just to say, okay?
No, it's been an uphill battle.
Yeah, I had Karl Rove on the set last night. He said there's plenty of money in the pipeline, and they've done all kinds of things to help people like you out on the border. Did you see that interview by any chance?
I did see that interview, and I'm here to tell you, somewhere between Texas and Washington, or somewhere between the southwest border and Washington, there's a leak, because it ain't getting down here.
You're saying, really? You're saying that he also said something interesting to me last night, and I couldn't believe he said it. He said that I'm trying to remember, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically that there is dirty stuff going on our side of the border, and that we should track it down and find out what it is. Do you have any inkling on where the payoffs are coming, or any way that we can stop that from going on? Go ahead.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked, because I can tell you exactly where I believe it is, and it's in Washington, D.C. The bureaucracy up there is where the payoff's at. It's apparent to me that they don't want this stuff stopped down
here. Okay, but wait a minute.
They want it to continue.
There's a difference between just being completely inept and being on the take and being dirty and stopping it for some reason or another. Do you think it's just Washington being inept, or do you think there's something more sinister?
Well, it's the ineptness in Washington, and the sinisterism of it is because there's so much money involved in this that some of these congressmen are being bought off. Some of these political figures are being bought off by some of this money. It's a no-brainer on this.
All right, Sheriff, best of luck. You stay safe. You let us know if there's anything we can do to help. Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. One thing I was going to tell you, if Ramos and him get that thing cleared up down there, I, for one, would be proud to hire him if he can get his stuff cleared up.
Yes, you got it. I will. Well, he's probably watching now. Thank you very much, Sheriff. Now, what's the right thing to do here? Well, should you be allowed to protect your own property? My gosh, when did we become a country where you couldn't do that? Principle number 5 says, if you break the law, you pay the price. Justice is blind and no one is above it. That means the rancher and that means an illegal alien. And remember principle number 9 here. The government works for me. I don't answer to them. They answer to me. When are we going to start demanding answers from Washington? If you agree, you're not alone. Email your picture to wesurroundthem@foxnews.com and make sure you watch our special on March 13th. All right, he tried to build a bridge between Muslims and members of other religions, but now he's being accused of beheading his wife. Whole story next. All right, this guy started a Muslim-American cable TV network to challenge stereotypes about his faith. You know, apparently we're just too stupid. We just all think that all Muslims are bad. I guess that's what we all think. We all think that, you know, all Wall Streeters are greedy. There's not a single person that's a good guy. We think that all single moms are just, you know, they're all just on welfare. We can't even speak the truth anymore, which is a problem, because now we don't know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. This guy, who was sticking up for the good guys, now accused of beheading his wife. He's been charged with second-degree murder. Police say there was a history of abuse, and his wife had gotten a restraining order and filed for a divorce, and then he cut her head off. Zuhdi Jasser is the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. You know what, Zuhdi? A lot of people, you know, especially a few years ago, right after 9/11, you would hear somebody like you get on a Muslim and say, well, I don't agree with, you know, what he did, but, you know, who knows? His wife probably was a really, you know what I mean? Nobody actually will say the truth anymore to each other. This guy, he beheads his wife. I haven't seen this story really anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue with sometimes when these things are as horrific as they are, Glenn. You know, my prayers go out to the family of Asiya, the victim here, and especially her children who are now left motherless and with a father who's a Neanderthal and a barbarian. And, you know, we have to look deeper. It's sort of like when you see, for example, crimes committed by alcoholism. And if you don't understand what the problem is with alcoholism, you're going to miss the problem. Okay, and so no matter how horrific the crimes are.
So what is the problem? Because there was another story, I don't know if you saw this, a guy from the UN that is, you know, part of the diplomatic squad from Afghanistan. His wife, she tried to get a divorce. He's beaten the snot out of her, stepping on her throat, whipping her with a belt. He's now facing 7 years in prison. He claimed diplomatic immunity, also claimed that she was beating him. Nobody in New York believed it, and this seems to be, at least in some places in the Middle East, the kind of attitude towards women.
Well, listen, I mean, my family came to the West because we wanted part of a culture that treats men and women equally, and that's the way we understood our faith. But the question is, which Islam is it? We can't be in denial as a Muslim community, like so many that have reacted to this, and say that this is just domestic violence. Here's a man that was dedicated to the faith, was putting a veneer on it, which was the only really, it was a network that was part of the Islamist infrastructure in America, and here you have, he was camouflaging his real life, which was one of domination and oppression of his wife that she wanted to get out of, and the underpinnings of that, Glenn, were theological, a wrong interpretation in my mind, but they were theological, and as long as we have Muslim organizations that continue to push forth interpretations of Islamic law that give women half the rights of men, give women inability to get the same inheritance, same votes in Islamic courts, that allow countries to establish Islamic law where women are stoned like the Taliban did, they can't drive in Saudi Arabia. But you know, all these things need reform, or we're going to continue to see acts like this. Okay,
Zuhdi, hang on just a second, because I want to ask you, there are places here in America where people are saying we need to have Sharia law, and people don't necessarily know that. We'll talk about it next. Zuhdi Jasser on the beheading of a Muslim wife, of a TV executive in New York. Zuhdi, can you imagine if not even a TV executive, but anybody, if anybody went and beheaded their wife? That is such an amazing story. It's such an awful, awful story. How is this? Does it show the bias of the media by not telling this story?
It really does, and then you wonder why we are not making any progress in stopping the root causes of radical Islamism because nobody wants to pay attention. Once it has the veneer of faith on it, they don't want to touch it. Imagine the exec at an Oxygen network or some other network doing this, like you said. It would be all over the news. We pay so much attention to Lacey Peterson and other things, but this, hardly any coverage.
Yeah, it would have been done if it was Pat Robertson doing it. It certainly would have been covered. In Pakistan, 90% of women, wives, are beaten. We see a culture here in our own country. I know you and I talked about it. It was like 2 years ago. It's up in Minneapolis area. Remember when somebody was beaten and they were beaten in the hallway, and in the Somali community, no one would talk about it. No one would report it. What is it that people in the Muslim community and these immigrant communities, what are they afraid of? The women are oppressed to the point that they have lost their identity, and what I think this story should do is get the organizations like NOW, which actually did make a statement on this, and this is a nonpartisan issue that should wake up the feminists and all those that see the plight of women under political Islam to say, listen, let's not let this murder go without making Bridges TV turn into reformist TV and reinterpretation of the milieu of the culture that is theocratic, that gives men basically a slippery slope in which to control the lives of women, and there needs to be a liberation of women across the world. And I think you won't be surprised to find a parallel between jihadists and those who are male dominators that dehumanize women. Okay, Zuhdi, thanks a lot. Final thoughts. Next. Hey, you have a chance to be a part of our live You're Not Alone program. It's a special we're going to do March 13th. People are going to come together, and you can host or attend a viewing party. Join the people who see America the same way you do. Get together with them. Be able to share